Okay, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome everyone. This is the panel discussion for the produce supply chain here in your neighborhood. My name is Mario Masellis and I am the Director of Sales and Marketing of the ML Catania Company. Catania Worldwide is a vertically integrated company that grows, packs, and ships fruit from Europe, Mexico, and the United States. I've been hanging my hat here for the last 17 years, which is a small piece of time compared to the 91 years the company has been open for business. The produce industry is an exciting and thriving sector to work in with a wide variety of career paths available. Before we get started with our panel, I would like to share with you a video produced by the Canadian Produce Marketing Association, which is entitled I Am Produce, which will highlight the diversity of workplaces and roles across the supply chain. Take a look.
I'm the marketing manager for BC Tree Fruits Cooperative. I handle the marketing on behalf of the 400 growers of our cooperative.
I am the logistics coordinator with Two Roads Logistics in Toronto. I move fresh produce across North America.
I'm a director of product management at iTrade Network. I oversee our quality and traceability solutions. We help grower shippers and producers track their produce throughout the supply chain and help ensure that freshest produce gets to the end consumer.
I am a category director at Loblaws for produce procurement. I buy product from all around the world.
I am a national account manager for Wilson International. We're a customs broker. We partner with produce importers and exporters who ship products throughout North America.
Je suis directrice marketing et amélioration continue chez Patates Dolbec. Nous sommes des producteurs de patates depuis 50 ans à Saint-Hubert dans le comté de Portneuf.
I am Vice President of Foreign Exchange Risk Management at Encore FX Inc., and we work with companies within the produce industry to help them manage margins and create visibility around every one of their foreign exchange transactions.
I am the Executive Director of Supply Chain at the Oppenheimer Group. I am responsible for our operations, quality control, transportation, inventory, manufacturing, and also sustainability.
I am a produce buyer for Metro. We work with growers, shippers, and wholesalers to provide the freshest fruits and vegetables to our customers.
I'm District Sales Manager for Wonderful Sales. I manage sales at a headquarter level for our 3 business units, which are Wonderful Pistachio and Almonds, Pom Wonderful, and also Wonderful Citrus.
I'm an advisor in business development at Vineland Research and Innovation Center. We're a horticulture research institute, and I manage intellectual property, business development, and commercialization.
Soy un especialista en mercadotecnia y empaque de Redstone Farms. Trabajo de cerca con el equipo de México, Estados Unidos y Canadá.
I am a marketing specialist at OPI. I help with packaging. I assist our sales people sell the produce to retailers with POS materials, and I organize trade shows from start to finish.
Je suis data scientist chez Motorleaf. Je m'occupe de l'intégration des données pour les producteurs en serre.
I am an import buyer from Fresh Direct Produce. I import fresh fruits and vegetables from all over the world.
I am a national procurement and sales manager at Earth Fresh Farms, where we grow, package, and distribute fresh premium potatoes to our customers.
My name is Perry Whitmer.
My name is Kaiser Rabot.
My name is Asul Mesa.
Je suis José Petitclerc.
My name is Emma Tamlin.
I am Lindsay Abrahams.
I am Kelsey Van Lissum.
I am Kristen Murphy.
And I am Produce.
Et la fraîcheur, c'est moi.
I am Produce.
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 And I am Produce.
Wonderful. As part of the Canadian Horticultural Council and the Canadian Produce Marketing Association's virtual edition of Fall Harvest, we are pleased to host this panel of industry representatives to offer an opportunity to learn about how the fresh produce supply chain is integrated into communities across the country, from farm gate to the dinner plate. I would like to acknowledge our fall harvest sponsors who have made this week very possible. This includes the BC Blueberry Council, Canada-wide Fruit Incorporated, Earth Fresh, Global Citrus Group, Loblaw Companies, the Ontario Fruit and Vegetable Growers Association, Ontario Greenhouse Vegetable Growers, Ontario Produce Marketing Association, Peak of the Market, Red Hat Cooperative, Veg Pro International, and Vineland Growers. Thank you all to the sponsors. Now, before we begin, I wanted to go through a few housekeeping notes. Today's session will have interpretation available. Please click on the languages globe at the bottom of your toolbar and select either English or French for your preferred language. And if you do not require interpretation, you do not need to select anything. Then you'll be able to hear the panelists as participants as they speak in either French or English. At the end of the panel, there will be some time for you to ask the panelists some questions, as I'm sure you all would want to do. Please enter these questions into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And if you would like to ask your questions to the panel directly, please do so by indicating in the Q&A.
Donc, c'est la boîte des Q&A. Donc, vous pouvez aussi poser les questions en français ou en anglais. Donc, on va vous appeler à ce moment-là et vous pourrez allumer votre...
Fruits and vegetables makes their way from the field, orchard or greenhouse to the grocery stores in your community. And we want you to know that the produce supply chain is a lot closer to home than you think. Today, we are joined by Mr. Jim DiMenna of Red Sun Farms.
Thanks, Mario. I appreciate the introduction. My name is Jim DiMenna. I'm president of Red Sun Farms. I started my career as a young vegetable peddler at 10 years old, selling door to door, and I continue to do that today. I'm definitely older than 10. But thanks for inviting me on the panel, and you missed your calling, by the way. You should have been a radio announcer.
Jim, are you still peddling door to door?
Somewhat.
Okay, fair enough. Next on our panel is Ray Keenan of Rollo Bay Holdings Limited from PEI.
Today, we sure appreciate the opportunity to share this panel with the members of Parliament and also our gracious colleagues from the industry here that we work with on a daily basis. Along with my brother Alvin, we own and operate Rollo Bay Holdings. We're one of the largest potato producers in Prince Edward Island. The company was started by our dad, Alvin Keenan Sr., back in the 1940s. Since that time, in the last 80 years, has always been a Keenan associated with the refreshos in the Atlantic region. Our family is transitioning today. Our sons and daughters are engaged in the industry now, and it's been an ongoing family business. So we're most pleased to have the opportunity to share in this.
Great. Thank you, Ray. And next we have Monsieur Guy Milette of Courchesne Larose.
Thank you, Mario, and thank you very much to all panelists and participants today. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Guy Milette. I am considered a produce fanatic and performance freak. I work as Executive Vice President for Courchesne Larose. 102 years of history are behind our company. And once considered a wholesaler today, we are more a pioneer in this industry, being a wholesaler, importer, distributor, but there's so much more that we're adding to the produce industry. Today, we became something very different than what the industry have ever known. I will tell you later about more detail. We're both handling Canadian and imported product across the country. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Guy. And last but not certainly least, the lovely Oleen Smethurst from Costco, Canada.
Hello, Mario. Hello, gentlemen. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Produce for Canada, Costco Canada. I started with Costco 29 years ago, and I've been in produce since June 2006, so 14 years. And I'm pretty sure everyone's familiar with who Costco is, but we globally source produce, fruits, and vegetables for the highest quality, and we're looking for the best flavor for our customers.
Wonderful. Thank you. We'll jump right into the questions if it's okay with you, and I'm sure the gentleman won't be objected to this, but we're going to go with ladies first. Oleen, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, your business, and how you got started specifically? And more importantly, what does your role in the organization play in bringing fruits and vegetables to Canadians and supporting food security in Canada?
Okay, I thought I kind of answered that.
No, the second part. Get into some detail.
I think, okay, well, we definitely look for flavor. So for us, that's paramount. So we travel the world meeting our growers to specifically eat fruits and vegetables. We meet with seed companies and breeders to go through what they're trialing for the future and try to identify early on in the process what we think has potential and what we think would be the right product for Costco members. I think we've created a very discerning group of members that are looking for flavor. And I also think that the more flavor we give them, the more healthy they will be because they're going to eat more of it. At the end of the day, if it tastes good, you're going to eat more. And we need people to consume more to be healthy, especially with what's going on now. It's even more important. Is that enough detail, my dear, or would you like
No, that was very detailed. Thank you. Ray, on the growing end of it, when Oleen comes to visit, what's your responsibility in the part of, bringing fresh fruits and vegetables to Canadians and supporting food security in Canada?
Well, to begin with, we start with the varieties and the seeds of the potatoes, of course, that the consumer that wants people like Costco, the retail chain stores. Our first thing is we have to be market driven and consumer driven. So when that buyer or that user has a need for a specific product in the potato area, we have to be able to grow it, package it, size it, and deliver it in a timely manner. So it is, we are part of the supply chain, and it's very important orientated because the continuity of supply is critical in this business. So the fact that we do all three segments of the industry, we have more control of it. The fact that we grow, package, and market, we know where the potato came from. We know the history behind it. We can keep our food safety up to scratch and give the consumer and the buyer the confidence they need to buy our product.
Okay. Guy, same question to you, but from a grower point, once the grower sends the product to you, what's your responsibility from that point?
Well, Mario, in our responsibility in produce goes a lot further than just receive the product, put them in the warehouse and sell it. I think the whole industry have changed a lot over the last 30 years. So once the fruit store here in Canada used to probably had 60 to 70% of the produce sales, while the retailer had about 30 to 35%. This completely shifted in today's numbers, and it's over 70% plus for retailers today, and fruit store has the difference. So there was a huge shift in the industry. Our role is very different than just normal wholesaler, where 20 years ago, everybody had their own truck and were coming over, buying the product, paying cash for most of them, and just go home with their product. Today, it's a big burden on transportation. Nobody wants truck anymore. It's very difficult to have drivers. So we went from 20 truck and trailer to 115. The burden is on us now. But that gives us the opportunity to, instead of doing 100 kilometers radius from Montreal, we go 600-700 kilometers. So we go very far. We reach community that were not being reached before. Consumer had no options than come and take their own product over here. Today, they can leave it to us and we'll deliver everywhere in the Quebec province, in the eastern part of Ontario, and all the maritime provinces.
Thank you, Guy. Jim, I've got a question for you. What do most people not know about your role in the Canadian food system?
I think as far as our company is concerned, because we're connected in all three NAFTA countries, Mexico, the United States, and Canada, our obligation to supplying the Canadian retailers and ultimately consumers is to make sure that we have consistent supply 12 months a year. So, the imports, the competition, if you will, from import is not necessarily that at all for our industry, but more of a supply and a satisfaction of the need for the product. So I'm pretty comfortable. I'm I think we're doing a pretty good job of making sure that we don't have gaps in supply, so that when the customer goes into the stores, that they're not disappointed with an empty shelf or maybe something that isn't quite to the standard that they're looking for. So it's one of the things that I think we don't tell the world enough about ourselves, but we're a little bit of a little bit of a quieter company than to scream from the hills that we can do everything and disappoint. So we'd rather sit in the valleys and do everything and do our gig. Not to sound too much like a commercial, but that's what I think we're not known for, but we would definitely like to do.
Okay. A follow-up to that would be, following the biggest misconception of the general public that has about the government's role in our industry.
So I think the government needs to support our industry, both. Like, I'm a grower as well, so we deal with challenges that most people aren't aware of. You read the newspaper, labor is a very big issue, but we struggle with water and the development of more access to fresh water so we can grow our crops here. I heard a young guy yesterday struggling with no water supply in his particular region. So the government needs to support us, and food and agriculture needs the water resources. The labor, we got to have full attention if we can get it from the government to let us get those folks. The programs that you see out there where they they're encouraging, giving what do they call them, money to folks that aren't working, but that's sets us back a little bit, because we're not able to hire the locals because they don't need to work because they're getting paid. So it leaves a huge gap for our industry and agriculture from coast to coast, quite honestly. Leamington has struggled major in the last 12 months trying to find people to work in our warehouses, in our greenhouses, and beyond. So long answer to your question, but hope I made my point.
Ray, have you had any labor issues or problems that the public really doesn't know about, or any misconceptions in your part of the world?
Well, we are the potato industry is a very automated industry, but at the same time, we do require people, a lot of people to from the farm sector all the way up to the packaging to the delivery. Since COVID-19 come along, of course, that got worse, because we have people today that choose to, because the government programs are designed right now that people just stay home, they don't work, and we do rely heavily on imported labor from mostly Guatemala and Mexico at this point. The biggest issue I think we have today is, how do we break that? How do we convince government that there's something more beyond this? We do have to get on with our lives here. We are respectable, but COVID-19 has certainly changed everyone's life, and we have to be respectful of keeping people safe and the food chain safe. So it's a very big part of labor. And also I think the other big misconception we have here in respect to the general public is that sometimes I think people think that food comes from a store, and when in fact there's a whole life behind it, and getting it produced, harvested, and packaged. And again, as I said earlier, the continuity of supply to keep, in our case, potatoes have to go into storage, and sometimes they have to stay there for a year. And it's our job is to have the quality of storage and facilities to bring those looking as good as the day they went into storage, and that's what technology does for us.
Okay. You brought up COVID-19 and the pandemic, so this is a question I'm going to ask all of you. But in the many months since the pandemic began, what kind of shifts have you seen in your company to handle this?
I think one of the big things that we see, Mario, is that the consumers are more appreciative of Canadian product grown locally in our own country. and they at least have some connection to the produce practices that go on across Canada. I think it's very important that we have that get that story told to the consumer. And like Jem says, I don't think we do a good enough job telling that story. It's something like going to church. That's why they go once a week, because you have to keep telling it. And I think it's important that we need to get the message out there. And the packaging facilities have made their, that we have today are very much designed to keep the food safe. So it is an ongoing responsibility of us all to keep a safe and secure food supply.
Okay. Key, what changes have you seen in your company?
Well, COVID has brought a lot of new challenges that we didn't, and we were not prepared, and I think nobody was. So the first month was a little chaotic, but it brought a lot of security measure that pretty much everybody adopt today. But I believe the key features of the success of what we had in our warehouse was human resource implication. We know exactly what staff is doing while they're at work, but we don't know what they do when they're not at work. And to have a social responsibility, make sure they understand that if they want to keep a safe job, their social life outside of work was as important as being at work. So no matter how much measure you take here in the company, you got to make sure that all the staff understand very well what is the safety job today. As far as pandemic, we have seen some very big changes in the industry.
De grands changements aussi dans l'industrie. Donc, on a eu en fait une croissance des ventes au détail. Donc, comme nous, on a fermé l'entreprise.
We're allowed in the warehouse to protect worker. It brought a lot of change. We used to have a buyer and salesman that used to inspect their product, check the quality. Today, we have electronic that comes and help us. We hired some photographs that actually take picture of every arrival and spread it within the buyer and selling department, so everybody knows exactly what's in the warehouse without physically being there. So we need to find new trick today that bring us somewhere else without putting at risk all the worker.
Thank you, Guy. Oleen, I noticed that when I was shopping at Costco during the pandemic, there was a lineup outside because we were, have to be social distance walk in. And then I saw some people just walk through and flash a card or a badge. So I asked the person at the front, how come they get to go? And I waited 20 minutes in line. Well, they're frontline workers. And you guys gave them an option to go in anytime, whenever they ended their shift. What other changes happened at the warehouse level for Costco?
Oh my God, what didn't happen would be easier to answer. We also allowed seniors to come in earlier. That was one of the things that we did, which I think was very impactful and very helpful for them to keep them as isolated as possible, and they weren't in with, more people. We've gone through everything. I mean, we started masks very early on in the whole ordeal to protect the employees first, and then I think we mandated it we asked first, I'll be nice. We asked members to wear masks. We provided masks for members to wear. We did everything. We did, I didn't realize how handy pallets are. So we use them to create the flow, and we actually, hugely impactful. So we had the one-way flow to get into the warehouse and then through the warehouse, and you can only get out one other way. So
that's where all the CHEP pallets went.
That's where all the CHEP pallet went.
Okay.
Exactly. So we had massive change, and then that's on the sales side, but on the on the purchasing side, everyone knows that there is panic buying. I don't know what people did with the amount of toilet paper that was purchased. I still have no idea. So we went from that, and I mean, Costco contract purchases their produce, and that means we do not buy off the food terminals or the wholesalers. We contract with everyone with forecasts. So when this hit and we had to get increases that were absolutely stupid through the roof, our vendors and growers went through leaps and bounds to try to make sure that they kept us in stock. And the other thing that this touches on that we didn't talk about food security. Costco has a very, I don't know if strict's the right word, but we've got a very strong food safety protocol in that we will not go to business with any growers worldwide that do not have our recommended food safety certification. And we actually check all the documentation every year, and we make sure that any actions that needed to be followed up on are implemented. So that's our big food security part of the deal. So the purchasing side was ridiculous for the vendors, especially because to try to fill our needs when you're seeing 100% lifts on items, and we didn't know which items either. It was kind of very chaotic. It is definitely settled down now, but we're still seeing huge increases in produce and meat and food. So it's an interesting time.
Yeah, certainly is. Jim, any changes on your house, on the warehouse facilities, and more importantly, Jim, do you expect these changes to be permanent?
Well, it's a great question. We were, I think it was in March. It was right around the 13th of March. I think that was kind of the D-Day for all of us. I had just come back from a trip, and I was planning to fly to Florida on the Sunday, and Saturday I was sitting at the counter with my wife, and I said, I just don't like the feel of this. Maybe we should stay home. At that point, we emptied the office. That Monday, we emptied the office, and everybody started to work from home. Warehouses got clamped down. We're doing COVID testing in both our facility in Virginia and our facility in Texas. As well, all the leadership team every day at 9 o'clock does a video conference, and it takes us 15 or 20 minutes, and we're actually connected better now than we ever were, because there's folks calling in from Virginia, from Texas, from Michigan, from British Columbia, and we're able to do that. Before COVID, you'd call the guy if there was something wrong, or you might talk to the guy once a week, but today we talk to these folks every day. And the conversation in our group is, we got to stay that way. We got to stay connected. So it's a big thing for us. Obviously the mask wearing, the distancing, everything else. We're usually around 50 people in this office. I think there's probably 6 or 7 here today. Everybody else working from home. And productivity has been okay. I mean, folks have stepped up for the most part. I think it actually helps us to see the productivity of everybody working from home, because there's no cover up, there's no tolerating, right? They do their jobs, and it's pretty exciting that we've got a really strong group of people working for us that are doing their job. There's a lot of product that moves in our company in a day. We're moving quite a lot of volume every day. So to accomplish it without too much resistance, a lot of changes in our industry. You said something earlier about pallets. So now I know where I should get my blue pallets, because Canada's struggling with pallets, and apparently Oleen's got them all.
Yes.
But, we'll have to talk to her when we're offline about that. Imagine it's something that you would never think of. The labor and the COVID cases. We've had some real disappointments in Texas. I mean, we've had some people pass away on us there. So it's a serious deal. We're not, what do you call it? We're not made of Teflon. It exists for us. Mexico, we're having plenty of issues in that country. We're 4,000 people in our farms in Mexico. Tough deal. And, we talk about labor in Canada because we think we're the only ones that have issues, but we have issues in Mexico too. It's not an unlimited resource in any country. So we should take it really seriously, and I think the respect and the support that we give our folks here in Canada, in Ontario, and across this country is really, really key. And I think I'm excited and I'm happy to see that everybody's treating everybody really well. And again, I apologize again for my long answer, but lots of things going on in our business.
Oh, don't apologize. Very informative, actually. Oleen, we're going to ask you this because I know you're very well versed on it, and you can give us the launching pad for sustainability and climate change, because they're increasingly the front of mind for Canadians, and how, they get so many different messages from, is this good? Is it not good? We hear this from the media and whatnot. So what is the fresh produce industry doing to promote sustainability, and how can the government support these efforts?
Okay, do you want me to talk about climate change as well?
Floor is yours. We're having a discussion here.
Okay, well, the first thing, I'll just talk on climate change really briefly because it is hugely impactful. And I don't think people recognize, we're buying globally. We have to. Consumers expect year-round supply now. And obviously we don't have an option to do anything else. But I don't think they realize just how much climate is affecting us worldwide. So we've got growers that are adding lights to greenhouses to try to get year-round production, whether they're in Canada, the US, or wherever. So that's a very big positive, although it's not necessarily going to solve all of our problems because not everything, I think, can grow effectively in a greenhouse. If I take Guatemala, for instance, they have a rainy season every year. But this year or last year, they've had so much more rain than normal in the rainy season. They're investing in hoop infrastructure, so you cover the crop with a hoop. It's still open field, but it's covered to try to mitigate some of the massive amount of water that they've been having that was just wiping out crops. So we're constantly wanting growers to diversify where they grow. If I look at certain countries like Morocco, we try to extend our vendor base to make sure that we have vendors growing in different regions. Morocco has a problem with lack of water. So we try to make sure we're in different areas to try to mitigate that if anything goes sideways. And we're doing that all over. I'm saying Morocco, but we're doing that globally. And also, I think water is the biggest challenge that we have as an industry. Lack thereof of water is one of the biggest challenges we're going to have as an industry moving forward. So that's my spiel on climate change. Sustainability is interesting. So when I think of a customer walking into a retail store today, the first thing they usually see when they walk in is produce. And as an industry, I think we've had some negative connotations about the plastic that we're using, because I think consumers do not understand that we have innovated hugely as an industry, but we also need it to protect the product. It's not just a convenience factor. I brought a sample to show you because not everyone understands this when I try to explain it. So to give you an idea of how the industry is innovated, this is a traditional clamshell. Let me know if that's working properly.
It is.
So it has you got a lid on it, okay? So, and then what we transitioned a lot of product to, we do kiwis, tomatoes, mushrooms. We're doing more and more of this. So this is still a plastic punnet, as you can tell. So the base is plastic, but instead of having the hinge lid, we've gone to a film seal. This is not easy to do. This is 3 pounds of tomatoes, quite heavy. So it opens up, and this little film is what's making things secure. So we found that this packaging is actually increasing shelf life, so it's maintaining the quality of the product better. From a food safety perspective, it's not bulk, so no one's touching the fruit and veg if you're packing in there. But what it also represents, that actually affects food waste. But then removing the lid and changing to that film represents a minimum of 25% reduction in plastic. And so as an industry and moving to this technology, sorry that was loud, we are doing the right things for the right reasons. Where I find the sustainability question so challenging is that there is a massive disconnect between what we're trying to do as an industry, what the packaging companies are doing, and what the recyclers are doing or able to do. So we really need, I think what would help, so let me explain that. I think we're banning, on the single-use plastics, we're banning black plastic. Well, I just talked to a recycler in Ontario last week, and he was explaining to me, because I said to him, I said, well, I thought we're banning black plastic because it's not able to be tracked or on the conveyor belt. The systems can't see it. And he said to me, that's partially true, but he's using infrared to pick out the different plastics. And he said, once it's done, all you have left on the conveyor is black. So he's created a niche market for recycling black plastics, and he can't get enough of it. So that's one thing in my mind. So why would we ban it if there's an actual market for it that we can make viable? And then the other thing is we all want to increase the recycled content in what we're purchasing, because that would hopefully make the whole thing a circular economy and make it make more sense for the recyclers. But we don't know how much material is available. And if we do this as an industry, not just produce, because the whole store is going to want to do the same thing and reduce, increase their recycled content in their packaging. There's probably not enough recycled content product out there to do so without incurring price increases. So it's an interesting dilemma. And also, there's something else I wanted to add. which is going to escape me right now, of course. So when I think about it, I'll tell you later.
Could it be, Oleen, the difference across the country? In the difference across the country in the recycling, what's allowable and what isn't?
Yeah, the municipalities are all different. So we don't really comprehend who does what or how. And that's what I wanted to mention. And right now, the price of virgin material is cheaper than recycled. So we need to wrap our heads around this, and we need government assistance. The recycling system has got to be made harmonized, efficient, and cost efficient. And it needs to do what we need it to do so that we're all moving in the same direction and making sure the recyclers have a home for whatever they're recycling.
So
recycle properly.
Ideally, what you're saying ideally is that municipal governments have to deal with provincial governments that have to deal with the federal government to make sure it's harmonized across the country.
No, I think the federal government needs to figure out what we need to do. But I was just on a shareholder webinar last Friday with, I'm probably going to say this wrong, Environment and Climate Canada. I've got it somewhere. I can't remember the name of it. ECCC, I think is what it was called. But they were talking about changing recycled content to 50%. I don't think we can do that without having adverse effects. There needs to be much more discussion, and we need to get the recyclers working in conjunction with what we decide to do, so that if we push the recycled content, there's a life cycle to it, and we can create a circular economy and make it viable for everyone, and then get stuff out of the landfill.
Wow.
Wow, exactly.
A lot of work. Ray, same question to you, but you're obviously going to answer this from a different perspective because you're a grower. Now, Oleen started talking about how she is faced with challenges in getting a good, proper food supply all across the globe. You're bringing it much closer to home. You're in Canada, you're in Prince Edward Island. What sort of sustainability or climate changes are you faced with? And how does this fresh produce industry going to promote this sustainability at your growing level?
Well, those two questions go very well together, Mario, because sustainability and climate change are joined at the hip. First of all, I'll start with the sustainability portion of it. Sustainability is a word that means many different things to different people. Since we are at the bottom of the food chain, the production area, we view sustainability as being economically profitable to reinvest our profits back into our business. Sustainability also involves good succession planning so that the farms continue to operate. I learned here not long ago from an article I was reading at the Canadian Federation of Agriculture, only 8% of Canadian farms have a written succession plan. So one has to wonder, how does the continuity of succession of these businesses continue if people don't pay more attention to the ongoing of their business? We try to accomplish some of the above by exhibiting a positive attitude and communicating with our team around us. It's also very important to know your weaknesses. We try to improve on the fragilities by reaching out to our other areas, or other provinces and other countries to learn more about the methods of successfully growing fresh produce. And I do think we are, when we add to the value chain, certainly it's important that
Donc, c'est vraiment important aussi qu'on garde un œil sur l'organisation des fermiers et aussi, bien sûr, l'Association canadienne de la distribution de fruits et légumes pour promouvoir la durabilité au niveau des fruits et légumes.
And the others have mentioned it on here too, and Oleen has about water. Water is getting to be king because we cannot grow anything without water. So we have two things: we have to find it and irrigate, or we have to conserve water. One of the things that has happened in the last 5 or 6 years, typically potatoes grow in a field once in 3 years. So the other 2 years in rotation, the crops that are put there are grain or wheat or corn or something that rotates the fiber back in the soil. However, that's simply not good enough anymore. It's not enough. And about 7 or 8 years ago, researchers started looking at pollinator crops to put in the soil in the off years of potatoes. So typically, if we a field that we had potatoes in that we just harvested this fall, next spring that will go into a mixture of about 20 different plant species. To name a few, one would be sorghum grass, the other might be alfalfa, the other could be fescue. Generally things, and this is where it gets interesting, things that bees like, because without bees we cannot pollinate our crops. So we're beginning to find that by these pollinator crops, as we call them, they're beginning to conserve more moisture in the soil. They're helping the environment by getting these crops plowed into it to enhance the bees. But at the same time, these are expensive. There's no monetary value in feeding the bees. We're not in the honey business. We are in the business of getting that field of land back in shape to grow a healthy crop of potatoes. So to that extent, the two go very close together. So water, technology, we have, and sustainability all have to be married together very carefully, and that's an ongoing situation. And to Oleen's point, I think the federal government certainly needs to pay more attention on the issues that keep our farms and food supply safe and secure and ongoing.
Great, thank you, Ray. There's a question from the group that I'm going to ask Guy, and it's a simple one, but it's going to be I'm interested to hear your answer. And what keeps you up at night other than Netflix? What's going to be your challenges over the next 5 or 10 years in running your business? What's going to keep you up at night?
I guess if we consider that 20 years ago, there were really little discussion about food safety and food security. Today, it's part of our everyday produce life. There's not a day that we have at least 10 or 15 discussion. And that food safety and food security is really hard because the government is driven towards more food safety and food security. That also means more packaging. On the other hand, consumers are expecting less packaging. So we need to find a nice balance, and that is not easy. You know, Oleen have hit the point. Ray have started to talk about it. Also, Jim is really right about it. Where do we find the right balance between produce protection to protect the shelf life of the product versus food security, real food safety reason, not only consumers' conception? So I guess there's so many initiatives that has been brought up in the past several years about sustainability. No matter if it's plastic, if it's packaging, could be just pesticide or agriculture topic. There's not a boring day in our produce life. We used to have. We used to be able to go play golf in the afternoon. This era is just finished. I mean, now it's like food safety, food security is there in our everyday life, and we need to find a good balance of that. You know, if you take E. coli as an example, it's always been there. There was E. coli 20 years ago and 40 years ago and 50 years ago, but you never hear about it. Today's communication, media, social media, and different change in the reglementation makes a 20 case of E. coli in a province a tsunami. And it can wipe out the economy of the entire Canadian on one single product. So it's very fragile. There's a lot of money involved. Importer, distributor like Courchesne is taking huge risk, $20, $30, $40 a boxes to make a small profit. It became really hard today. So what keeps me aware? I'll send you a list.
Jim, same question to you. What keeps you up, and where do you see the challenges in your business for the next 5 or 10 years?
Once again, a great question, and I'd love to give you one specific item, but to be honest with you, you know, obviously we're worried about health of our staff and our friends and our community, the country. I mean, it's all about health, and with COVID, it's obvious that we're aware of health. We talk about it every day. But on a business note, we look at our accounts receivable numbers, and we look at how how much that's grown in our company and in a lot of companies. We're dealing with a lot of money these days, and with the surprises in food service and industry and who's going to be around and who's not, that kind of thing can really devastate a company. And I know we're here this week to talk about that with the MPs, and I think it's probably one of the things that does keep me awake at night, because you build a in all businesses, fortunately, we build a reserve of money, and we put that money back in play, and we support our receivables, and we oblige ourselves or obligate ourselves to the banks and everything else. Imagine a devastating bankruptcy for any of us. We've got the ability, and again, I think that if you talk about that, Mario, I think that's probably one of the biggest things that most people running businesses will be honest and tell you that that's their concern. We want to make sure we're good to sell the product. We like to deliver it on time. We want to make sure it's good. It receives well. It's the quality that the customer is looking for. But it's important that we get paid, and I think the government has to help us and support that. And then I'll go back to not sleeping because we don't know who won the election last night, something like that. But, it's a very important topic, and again, it's topic of mine this week with our group. And it's topic of, it's one of those things that I don't want to talk about specific numbers, but I tell you what our receivables are in this company are pretty substantial. And we just want to make sure that we get, and if we could get some help, I think I'm a big believer in the PACA trust in the United States, and there's no reason why we can't have it in Canada. It's not a cost to the government at all. It's just a support. And we've been down this road for years, and we really want the MPs and the government of this country to support everybody in our industry, because understanding why it makes sense for us to be paid. You can't buy a load of tomatoes today from me and go bankrupt on Friday and use that money to pay the bank or use that money to pay somebody that's been around for 3 months. It's not fair. You knew you were going to go out of business Friday. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's what's keeping me up at night.
If I can add, what keeps me up at night, and it's more of a concern, and people ask you, what do you do for a living? And why I say I'm in the fruit and vegetable industry, and they kind of look at you kind of perturbed. What does that mean exactly? Well, I kind of say that it's the only industry that I know left in the world where I could call someone in as far as New Zealand, South Africa, Italy, and put $100,000 worth of product on a container, and I haven't sent them a dime yet. And it's a trust factor that happens. Still one of the few industries where there's no money changed hands yet until after I've sold the product. Yeah. So, you could lose money very quickly.
And in our case, we're moving close to 100,000 boxes a day out of this company. Think about that. Do the math. It's a big number. And with the support of the government and giving us a PACA-like trust in Canada would be amazing, and would be such a feather, such a support. We've got, we got the knowledge. All of us know about the PACA trust in the United States, and there's no reason why we shouldn't have it. And I don't.
To follow up with that, specifically looking at government, are there any specific regulations or policies that the government has in place right now that's impeding your business?
It's the. Geez, I don't know how I can answer that politically correct today. Thanks for the question.
It's just the five of us talking. Forget about the other 56 that are in the room.
The regulations for all of us get to be cumbersome. I'm building a greenhouse right next door to us, 27-acre greenhouse farm. It's a big deal. And just, we'll talk maybe on a local issue. I would go and looking for a permit for the bunkhouse, and they'd give me they'd say, okay, the Minister of Transport has to sign off on it, but they're in COVID, so they're going to be 3-4 months before they'll sign off on it. And then once I got them to sign off on it, then it was ERCA, which is the environment folks, and they're in COVID too, so they're another 2-3 months. But all this kind of saga, and now I'm chasing to get my bunkhouse built. So I've got plumbers, electricians, and construction guys all over this bunkhouse, building it like a honeycomb, if you will. But those are kind of local challenges that they got to understand what all of us go through as growers and businesses, that don't get in our way. Try to help us a little bit. Would really help us instead of, make the red tape not so red, not so long. Give us a little bit of a break on building, on our offshore program. There's some red tape there. It's important that we get in front of this thing, because who knows what January, February for us greenhouse guys are gonna deal with. We don't know what COVID looks like 3 months from now. Is it going to be okay? Let's get the red tape out of the way, make sure that those folks are accessible to us to come into the country. There were some people really struggling here in this area. Again, I'm talking specifically about greenhouse, but I know that Ray's got issues imagine if you didn't have offshore guys in the potato business and in PEI. I mean, it's difficult all over this country. The guys in the West Coast, there's those kind of things. And I think the government has to give us support and cut the red tape so we can get through this quicker.
Okay. Oleen, question to you is, what are the biggest challenges facing your part of the supply chain as we look ahead? And what can the government do to help support your success in getting fruits and vegetables to the members?
Well, Jim just touched on it. Labor is a massive concern, not just in Canada, but elsewhere. If I think of the BC blueberries the season that we just had, we're lucky enough in the West that we can use mechanical harvesting and it doesn't impact the quality of the fruit. Wouldn't be the same like East Coast Jersey. We couldn't do the same thing because of the climate. So labor is a massive concern. So making sure the foreign workers are able to come into the country. I think we also need, what would be very helpful is with COVID ever changing, I think it would be very helpful if the government keeps their minds open to new technology and new procedures that are coming. We've heard about testing in Calgary and potentially Vancouver, and I'm thinking it's the rapid testing sort of procedure. And if that would help eliminate the 14-day quarantine or shorten even the 14-day quarantine to make things easier, that would be very helpful. That would be the biggest one that I can think of off the top of my head.
Okay. Guy, same question to you. Off mute, Guy.
I was busy answering some question that we have on the panel. After all these years, I never grown any product, but I'm born in a cabbage. So produce is being a real passionate topic for me. Just to go back on one single question that we asked, didn't finish answering about it, concerning the relation between CFIA and FDA on different topics, on recalls and all that. I'd like to have an hour to answer on this, but I'm going to try to make a really well-written answers and try to make it more understandable for everybody. But at the end of the day, the relation between U.S. and Canada, this is not something we can easily manage. We can for sure improve us Canadian between industry and government, improve relations, and we've done it. CPMA has been doing a fantastic job by improving this relation. We've seen it in so many topics every year, but that extra step by improving Canada and the United States is something that it's very hard to manage for us.
Ray, any challenges on your end?
Oh, heck no, we have none at all.
Wonderful.
I guess to put it in perspective, Mario, if someone had asked us to prepare this presentation a year ago, COVID-19 would not have even been on the radar. We would never have thought of it as an issue. So, and the take home from that is how quickly we have to be prepared to turn on a dime. And a minute ago about the regulatory people, if they're off on COVID, you have to have a permit, or you have to wait. But the consumer cannot wait, and all of the things that we rely on government to do for us as our partners, and as they should be, we don't have the luxury of time to serve people on an orderly basis. So I think in a nutshell, I mean, common sense has taken quite a kick in the head in the last 15 years. We don't, every time there's a new layer of regulations comes on, it slows us up big time. We're in the business here right now of planning for a new facility here, and the planning of that and the go forward part of it is more significant than the building of it, the regulatory part of it. Climate change, we talked about it earlier, but freight is a big part of our business in the Atlantic region because every time things have to go to here by truck. And we have weight restrictions comes on that requires us to cut our weight back about 20%. So for every 5 trucks you send, you got to send a 6th and one more. That's costly. At the same time, it's these regulations are in mainly one province, so one province can tie up the other 10. So we have things like this that are ongoing, and I do think the nutshell of it is that government can help by the environment for us. I think they can help in research and data. We have to have more. We've often heard it said that we can't manage something if we can't measure it. And it's important that we know the supply inventory today of what our crops are, what we have of them. And the other thing that never occurred before, when Oleen spoke earlier about packaging, the modification of packaging, but just the supply of packaging. Up until this year, 4 to 6 weeks would get any kind of bag we made, any solid bag that we needed in a hurry would be quite adequate time. Today we have suppliers that need up to 6 months to supply those same bags. So you have to be constantly tying up money in inventory, and at the same time thinking so far ahead, because if you have the bag but you don't have the quick lock to put on it, you just can't. Any commodities that we're dealing with today are all about people and supply.
Guy, do you want to follow up on that?
Real quick, to complete on the challenge that we have today, I think a lot of people, consumer to start with, but also many other peoples that are not specifically directly related to our industry, underestimate what is food safety and food security cost. In the past 4 or 5 years only, our expenses for food safety, food security has probably multiplied by 10. And at the end of the day, we cannot always put back the price on the consumer. There's a limit of how much a consumer can pay for the product. But at the end of the day, we're talking millions of dollars to maintain some certification. And it's very hard on the entire industry, no matter if you're a wholesaler, a retailer, a grower. These are costs that were not necessarily all there some years ago. So I think we never really talk about this heavy weight that we carry on our shoulder. But as the year goes by, if food safety, food security has to be even more complex, the cost will keep raising.
Okay. I'm going to ask all of you this question. You can jump in at any time because you've got different perspectives. But we'd like to hear your perspectives on the complexities and challenges of delivering food in a country as large as ours. And in some cases so sparsely populated that, you have a population of 150. How does your approach to fulfillment differ in large urban centers compared to smaller and more remote areas? And Guy, I think I'm going to start with you because you're in that section of the industry.
Absolutely. Well, I said earlier in the beginning that our fleet of transportation went from a few dozen a truck to over 120, maybe 130. I lost count. We get some new trucks every day, and that give us a reach to go very deep in the country that we were not doing before. Back in the old days, we were doing 100 to 200 kilometers around the delivery. Today, it's 600, 650, and we even reach further with third-party carriers. So we can really deliver to any little suburb or really remote area in the north part of Quebec, in the center of New Brunswick, at the extent of Nova Scotia, that we were not doing before. So I think that the accessibility to produce is better today than it was before, but everything has a price. You know, it's being really complex to handle a fleet of 125 truck and trailers, but at the end of the day, it's very efficient. Today's reality is there's so much technology to follow everything you do, transportation, buying and selling. The technologies are there, they're cheap, they're affordable, you gotta use them. And this is why companies that see daylight out of it or really perform it. I said earlier, I'm a performance freak, and I really mean it. Performance is everything in today's world. People are buying stuff, they expect things to be delivered, no matter where they are, no matter where they are.
Well, like I had figured, we are out of time because the five of us could sit here and talk about our industry all day. But I thank you all for participating in this panel, and I hope that everyone that was listening can learn or was able to learn something more about our industry than when they started. It was very informative discussion. I want to thank you all very much. To our participants, thank you for joining us. I hope that the challenges can be met and that Canadians are able to fill their plates with fruits and vegetables. So I want to thank everyone for joining us.